I stood at the entrance of the Riverside Hotel ballroom, smoothing down my dress for the third time in 5 minutes. 20 years. 20 years since I'd walked the halls of Lincoln High, and here I was, about to face everyone I'd left behind. My hands were shaking, and I wasn't sure if it was excitement or dread. The moment I stepped inside, the noise hit me. Laughter, chatter, the clinking of glasses. A banner hung across the far wall reading Lincoln High Class of 2005 to 20-year reunion. I recognized faces immediately, even though they were older, fuller, marked by time. I grabbed a name tag from the table and pinned it to my chest. Sarah Mitchell. That was me. Small-town girl who'd left North Carolina right after graduation and never really looked back. I made my way to the bar, ordered a glass of wine, and tried to blend into the crowd. I saw old classmates hugging, laughing, showing off pictures on their phones. Everyone seemed so comfortable, so connected. I felt like an outsider, which was ironic considering I'd spent 4 years with these people. Then I heard it. That laugh. High-pitched, sharp, cutting through the room like a knife. I turned, and there she was. Jessica Crawford. Blonde hair perfectly styled, designer dress that probably cost more than my rent, and that same smug smile I remembered from high school. She was holding court with a group of women, all hanging on her every word. Our eyes met across the room, and her smile widened. She excused herself from her group and walked straight toward me, heels clicking against the hardwood floor. My stomach tightened. "Sarah Mitchell," she said, looking me up and down. "Wow. It's been forever." "Hi, Jessica," I managed, forcing a smile. She air-kissed both my cheeks, her perfume overwhelming. "Oh my God, look at you. You look good." I mean, considering. Considering what, I wanted to ask, but I already knew this was going to be one of those conversations. "So, what have you been up to?" she asked, sipping her champagne. "I heard you're still in Charlotte?" "Yes, I work as a teacher. Middle school English." "A teacher," she repeated, and I could hear the condescension dripping from her voice. "That's so sweet. So noble. I always admired people who could do that kind of work. I could never. The pay, you know." She laughed, touching my arm like we were sharing a joke. I felt my face flush. "It's rewarding." "I'm sure it is," she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "I've been in New York. I'm a senior marketing executive at Hartwell and Associates. You might have heard of us. We handle some of the biggest brands in the world. The salary is insane, and the perks, well, let's just say I just got back from the Maldives. Company retreat." She pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos. "Look at this resort. 20,000 a night. Completely worth it." I nodded, pretending to be interested while she showed me picture after picture of pristine beaches, infinity pools, and gourmet meals. Other people started gathering around, and Jessica's audience grew. She was in her element. "Sarah here is a teacher," Jessica announced to the group, as if it were some kind of curiosity. "Middle school. Can you imagine? Dealing with those kids all day." A few people laughed uncomfortably. I felt small, diminished, like I was back in high school and Jessica was still the popular girl who could make or break your social standing with a single comment. "It's honest work," I said quietly. "Oh, absolutely," Jessica said, patting my shoulder. "We need teachers. I mean, someone has to do it, right? Not everyone can be in corporate America. Not everyone has the drive or the ambition. And that's okay. The world needs all types." I wanted to respond, to defend myself, but the words stuck in my throat. I excused myself and headed toward the bathroom, my eyes stinging. I locked myself in a stall and took a deep breath. This was a mistake. Coming here was a mistake. I should have stayed home, should have ignored the invitation. When I finally emerged, I splashed cold water on my face and stared at my reflection. 38 years old, single, living in a modest apartment, driving a 10-year-old Honda. By society's standards, by Jessica's standards, I was nobody. But I loved my job. I loved my students. I made a difference in their lives every single day. That had to count for something. I walked back into the ballroom, determined to find someone else to talk to, anyone else. But Jessica found me first. "Sarah, there you are," she said, linking her arm through mine. "Come on, I want you to meet some people." She dragged me over to a group near the windows. More familiar faces. Brad Henderson, captain of the football team. Emily Zhang, valedictorian. Mark Torres, class clown turned successful entrepreneur according to his name tag. "Everyone, you remember Sarah, right?" Jessica said. We were in AP English together. She was always so serious, nose in a book. I used to tell her she needed to lighten up, have some fun. But I guess that's what made her a good teacher, right? The group smiled politely, but I could see the pity in their eyes. Jessica kept talking, dominating the conversation, steering it back to her accomplishments every chance she got. Her apartment in Manhattan. Her promotion. Her boyfriend who was some hedge fund manager. On and on. I was about to excuse myself again when the lights dimmed slightly and someone tapped a microphone on the small stage at the front of the room. Our former class president, Danny Sullivan, stood there with a grin. "All right, everyone, settle down," he said. "We've got a special surprise tonight. We have a guest who wanted to say a few words. Someone who's traveled a long way to be here. Please welcome Dr. Elizabeth Park." The room erupted in applause, and I froze. Dr. Elizabeth Park. That name. I knew that name. My heart started pounding as a woman stepped onto the stage. She was elegant, poised, wearing a tailored suit. Her hair was pulled back, and she wore glasses that somehow made her look even more authoritative. She took the microphone, smiling warmly at the crowd. "Thank you, Danny," she said, her voice calm and measured. "I know most of you probably don't recognize me. I wasn't exactly memorable in high school. I was quiet, kept to myself, struggled to fit in. But there was one person who made my life bearable during those 4 years. One person who showed me kindness when I needed it most. I felt like the floor was dropping out from under me. Elizabeth Park. Lizzie. Quiet, awkward Lizzie who sat behind me in English class. Who I'd helped with her essays, who I'd eaten lunch with when no one else would. Lizzie who moved away junior year when her dad got a new job. "Sarah Mitchell," Elizabeth said, scanning the crowd until her eyes landed on me. "Sarah, are you here?" Everyone turned to look at me. I raised my hand weakly, my cheeks burning. "There you are," Elizabeth said, her smile widening. "Come up here, please." I shook my head, but people were already nudging me forward, clapping, encouraging me. I walked to the stage on shaky legs, and Elizabeth pulled me into a hug. "I can't believe you're here," she whispered in my ear. Then she turned back to the crowd, keeping one arm around my shoulders. Sarah probably doesn't remember this, but when I was at Lincoln High, I was bullied relentlessly. I was the weird kid, the outsider. I had no friends, no support. I was so depressed that I seriously considered ending my life. The room went silent. You could hear a pin drop. But Sarah noticed. Elizabeth continued, her voice thick with emotion. She saw me sitting alone at lunch one day and asked if she could join me. She didn't have to. She was friends with everyone, could have sat anywhere. But she chose to sit with me. And she kept sitting with me, day after day. She helped me with my homework, invited me to study groups, made me feel like I mattered. She saved my life, and I don't think she ever realized it. Tears were streaming down my face now. I remembered Lizzie, of course I did, but I had no idea she'd been struggling that much. I'd just thought she needed a friend. "After I moved away, I threw myself into my studies," Elizabeth said. Sarah inspired me. She was always so passionate about literature, about teaching. I wanted to make her proud. I went to UNC, then got my PhD in education from Stanford. I've spent the last 15 years researching literacy programs and working with underserved communities. I've published 4 books, consulted with the Department of Education, and last year, I was awarded the National Medal of Education by the President. The room erupted in applause again. I was in shock, barely processing what she was saying. But none of that would have happened without Sarah, Elizabeth said, squeezing my hand. She taught me that one person can make a difference. That kindness matters. That showing up for someone, even in small ways, can change the trajectory of their entire life. So thank you, Sarah. Thank you for being the person you are. She hugged me again, and the applause was deafening. I couldn't stop crying. When I finally stepped off the stage, people swarmed me, congratulating me, hugging me, telling me how moved they were. But I was looking for Jessica. I found her standing near the bar, her face pale, her champagne glass clutched tightly in her hand. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I walked over to her and she straightened up, forcing a smile. That was really something, she said stiffly. Jessica, I said quietly. I need to tell you something. She looked at me, and for the first time that night, she looked uncertain. You spent all evening making me feel small, I continued. Making me feel like my life doesn't matter because I don't have a fancy job or a big salary or exotic vacations. But what you don't understand is that my life is full. I go to bed every night knowing that I made a difference for a kid who needed it. I get letters from former students telling me I changed their lives. I have relationships, real relationships, with people who matter. And that's worth more than any paycheck. Jessica's eyes were glistening now, and I realized she was on the verge of tears. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I was cruel. I don't know why I said those things. I guess I just wanted everyone to think I had it all together. Do you? I asked gently. She shook her head, a tear slipping down her cheek. No, I'm miserable. I work 80 hours a week at a job I hate. I have no real friends in New York, just colleagues who would stab me in the back for a promotion. My boyfriend, he's cheating on me. I know he is. And I'm too scared to leave because then I'd have to admit that my perfect life is a lie. I felt a wave of compassion wash over me. Jessica, it's not too late to change things. To find something that actually makes you happy. She wiped her eyes, smudging her mascara. I don't even know what that would look like anymore. We stood there for a moment in silence, and then she surprised me by pulling me into a hug. I really am sorry, she said. You're incredible. You always were. The rest of the evening was a blur. People kept coming up to me, sharing their own stories about teachers who'd impacted them, asking about my work, genuinely interested. I felt seen in a way I hadn't in years. But the night wasn't over yet. As things were winding down, Elizabeth found me again. Can we talk? She asked. Somewhere private? We stepped out onto the hotel's terrace, the cool night air a relief after the stuffiness of the ballroom. The city lights twinkled in the distance. I need to tell you the whole story, Elizabeth said, leaning against the railing. The reason I really came tonight. Okay, I said, curious. After I got my PhD, I started working on a project, she began. A national literacy initiative focused on underfunded schools. We've been developing curriculum, training teachers, providing resources. It's been my passion project for years. And we just got a major grant. $50 million over 5 years. My jaw dropped. Elizabeth, that's incredible. It is, she agreed. But here's the thing. I need a team. I need people who understand what it means to be in the trenches, who care about kids, who have the experience and the heart to make this work. And I immediately thought of you. Me? I said, incredulous. Yes, you. Sarah, I want you to come work with me. Be my director of curriculum development. You'd be traveling to schools across the country, training teachers, developing programs. The salary is $200,000 a year, full benefits, and you'd be making an impact on a scale you can't even imagine. I couldn't breathe. $200,000. That was more than triple what I made now. But more than that, it was a chance to do what I loved on a massive scale. I don't know what to say, I stammered. Say you'll think about it, Elizabeth said, smiling. I know it's a big decision. You'd have to relocate to DC, where our headquarters are. But Sarah, you'd be changing lives. Not just individual students, but entire communities. And you'd be doing it with me. We'd be a team again, just like in high school. Tears welled up in my eyes again. I need to process this. Take your time, she said. But not too much time. I need an answer in 2 weeks. We hugged again, and she handed me her card. Call me when you're ready to talk details. When I walked back into the ballroom, I felt like I was floating. The evening was breaking up, people saying their goodbyes, exchanging numbers, promising to stay in touch. Jessica found me one more time before she left. I heard, she said, about Elizabeth's offer. Someone overheard you two on the terrace. Oh, I said, not sure what to expect. Congratulations, she said, and this time her smile seemed genuine. You deserve it. You really do. Thank you, I said. She hesitated, then added, maybe this is a wake-up call for me too. Maybe it's time I figured out what actually makes me happy instead of just chasing what looks good on paper. I hope you do, I said sincerely. She nodded and walked away, her shoulders a little less straight, her stride a little less confident. But somehow, she seemed more real than she had all evening. I drove home that night in a daze, my mind racing. Could I really do this? Could I leave Charlotte, leave my school, my students, my comfortable routine? It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I talked to my principal, who was sad to see me considering leaving but understood the opportunity. I called Elizabeth and asked a million questions about the position, the expectations, the vision. The more I learned, the more excited I became. But there was still fear. Fear of failure, fear of change, fear of stepping into something so much bigger than anything I'd done before. I thought about what Elizabeth had said on stage. About how one person can make a difference. About how showing up, even in small ways, can change lives. I'd been showing up for my students for 15 years, one classroom at a time. But what if I could show up for thousands of students? What if I could show up for teachers who needed support and resources? I called Elizabeth exactly 1 week after the reunion. I'm in, I said. Let's do this. I could hear the smile in her voice. I was hoping you'd say that. Welcome to the team, Sarah. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. I gave my notice at school, and my students threw me a surprise goodbye party that left me sobbing. They made me cards, wrote me letters, told me how much I'd meant to them. One girl, a quiet 8th grader named Maya who reminded me so much of Lizzie, handed me a folded piece of paper. Don't read it until you're alone, she whispered. That night, in my nearly empty apartment surrounded by moving boxes, I opened Maya's letter. It was written in careful, looping handwriting. Dear Miss Mitchell, it read. I just want you to know that you saved my life. I was being bullied really bad this year, and I didn't think anyone cared. But you noticed. You asked if I was okay. You let me eat lunch in your classroom. You made me feel like I mattered. I don't know what I would have done without you. Thank you for being the best teacher ever. I'm going to miss you so much. Love, Maya. I cried so hard I thought I might be sick. This was why I did what I did. And now I was going to be able to help so many more Mayas, so many more Lizzies. I moved to DC in late August. Elizabeth had helped me find an apartment, and the organization covered my moving expenses. My first day at the office was overwhelming. Big glass building, fancy conference rooms, a team of dedicated, brilliant people all working toward the same goal. I had my own office with my name on the door. Director of Curriculum Development, Sarah Mitchell. The work was hard, harder than I'd expected. I was traveling constantly, visiting schools in rural areas, inner cities, reservation lands. I saw poverty and neglect I'd never imagined. But I also saw hope. I saw teachers who were desperate for help, for resources, for someone to tell them they were doing a good job. And I got to be that person. 6 months into the job, I was in a small town in Mississippi, training a group of elementary school teachers on our new literacy program. One woman, probably in her 50s, approached me afterward. Thank you, she said, her voice shaking. I've been teaching for 30 years, and I was about to quit. I felt like I wasn't making a difference anymore, like nothing I did mattered. But what you taught us today, it reminded me why I started. You gave me hope again. I hugged her, fighting back tears. You're making a difference, I told her. Don't ever doubt that. That night, alone in my hotel room, I thought about Jessica. I wondered if she'd made any changes in her life, if she'd found her own version of happiness. I pulled up social media and searched for her name. Her profile was still public, and I scrolled through recent posts. Pictures of her in New York, but different somehow. Simpler. Coffee shops instead of five-star restaurants. Parks instead of nightclubs. And then I saw a post from 2 weeks ago. Big changes coming, she'd written. Leaving corporate America to pursue something I've always dreamed about. Scared but excited. Stay tuned. I smiled and liked the post. Good for her. A year after the reunion, Elizabeth and I were invited to speak at a national education conference. We presented our findings, shared success stories, and talked about the importance of supporting teachers. The audience was packed, hundreds of educators from across the country. After the presentation, we were swarmed with questions, with people wanting to know how to get involved, how to bring our program to their schools. Later that evening, at the conference dinner, Elizabeth stood up to give a toast. I want to talk about friendship, she began. About the kind of friendship that doesn't ask for anything in return. That shows up quietly, consistently, without expecting recognition or reward. 20 years ago, Sarah showed me that kind of friendship. She didn't know she was saving my life. She was just being herself. Kind, compassionate, present. And tonight, I get to stand here with her as my colleague, my partner, and my friend, and watch as she impacts thousands of lives the same way she impacted mine. To Sarah. The room raised their glasses. To Sarah. I stood up, my heart so full I thought it might burst. To all of us, I said. To every teacher who shows up every day, who sees the kid in the back of the room, who stays late to help with homework, who believes in students when no one else does. We are changing the world, one life at a time. And that matters. That will always matter. The applause was thunderous. As I sat back down, I thought about that night at the reunion. About how small I'd felt, how invisible. About Jessica's cutting remarks and my own doubts. And then I thought about Elizabeth's words, about Maya's letter, about the teacher in Mississippi, about all the lives I'd touched without even realizing it. I'd spent so much time measuring my worth by external standards. Salary, status, recognition. But the truth was, my worth had always been there, in the quiet moments, the small kindnesses, the daily choice to show up and care. I pulled out my phone and texted Jessica. Saw your post. So proud of you. Let's catch up soon. She responded almost immediately. I'd love that. You were right, by the way. About everything. I smiled and put my phone away. 3 years later, our literacy program had reached over 500 schools in 42 states. Test scores were up, teacher retention was improving, and we were getting calls from international organizations wanting to replicate our model. Elizabeth and I had just signed a deal to write a book about our work, and we were being featured in a documentary about education reform. But the moment that meant the most to me came on a random Tuesday in October. I was visiting a school in rural Oregon, observing a third-grade classroom. The teacher was using our curriculum, and the kids were engaged, excited, reading with a fluency that brought tears to my eyes. After class, a little boy with messy hair and a gap-toothed smile came up to me. "Are you the lady who made our books?" he asked. "I helped," I said, kneeling down to his level. "I like reading now," he said seriously. "I used to think I was dumb because I couldn't read good. But my teacher said everyone learns different, and now I can read chapter books. I read one about dragons last week." "That's amazing," I said, my throat tight. "I'm so proud of you." He grinned and ran off to join his friends at recess. I stood there in that classroom, watching the kids play through the window, and I felt it. The deep, bone-deep satisfaction of a life well lived. Not because of money or status or recognition, but because of moments like this. Because a little boy who thought he was dumb now loves to read. Because a teacher in Mississippi remembered why she started. Because a quiet girl named Lizzie became Dr. Elizabeth Park and changed the world. And because 20 years ago I chose kindness. I chose to sit with someone who needed a friend. I chose to show up day after day, even when it felt small and insignificant. That choice changed everything. Later that evening, I called my mom. "Hey, Mom," I said when she picked up. "Sarah, honey, how are you? How's Oregon?" "It's good," I said. "Really good. I wanted to call and say thank you." For what? For raising me to believe that kindness matters. That teaching matters. That making a difference in someone's life, even one life, is enough. She was quiet for a moment, and I could hear the emotion in her voice when she spoke. "Oh, sweetheart. You've always had that heart. I'm so proud of the woman you've become." We talked for another hour about everything and nothing. When we finally hung up, I sat on the hotel bed and opened my laptop. I had a speech to write for a conference next month, but first, I wanted to send an email. I pulled up Jessica's contact. We'd been emailing regularly, and she'd recently told me about her new venture. She'd left her corporate job and opened a nonprofit focused on mental health support for young professionals. It was small, just getting started, but she was passionate about it in a way I'd never heard her be about anything. "Hey Jess," I typed. "Just wanted to check in. How's everything going with the nonprofit? I was thinking, Elizabeth and I have some connections with grant organizations. Maybe we could set up a call and see if there's any way we can help you get funding. Let me know. And seriously, I'm so proud of what you're doing. Talk soon, Sarah." I hit send and closed my laptop. Tomorrow, I'd be visiting 2 more schools, meeting with teachers, observing classrooms. The work was never done. But that was okay. Because this work, this life, it filled me up in a way nothing else ever had. I thought about that reunion, about standing in that ballroom feeling small and insignificant. I thought about how much had changed in just 3 years. Not because I'd become someone different, but because I'd finally seen my own worth. Because someone else had seen it too and given me a chance to step into something bigger. As I drifted off to sleep that night, I felt grateful. Grateful for Elizabeth, for Maya, for all my students past and present. Grateful for Jessica's harsh wake-up call that had somehow led to this. Grateful for every small moment of kindness I'd ever given or received. Because in the end, that's what life is. A collection of moments. And if we're lucky, some of those moments change everything.